All right, it's now recorded. So I'm so happy to introduce or welcome Sophia, Sadie, and Liam to join us today. Hey, by the way, Liam, is are you in your classroom right now? That is awesome. That's so pretty. Or it's just like a virtual background. I don't know. Anyway, he probably will tell you all the things. But before we start, I would like you three to introduce yourself. Maybe share one or two stories that you have as a music major in the past or as a music minor to tell us some like your background. Let us get to know you for a little bit. How about let's start with how about Sadie?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me in, Mr. Toe. I am excited to be here. My name is Sadie Quinsott. I just graduated from the University of Washington this past June. I majored in music education with a vocal emphasis. I grew up in Texas. I was born and raised there and moved to Seattle, Washington for college. But at your age and when I was applying for college, I had no idea that I would be a music major. Even when I first went to college in the first year throughout college, I was not officially a music major, but I'm so glad I found the right path for me and I couldn't be happier with that decision and love being a music teacher so far. Oh, and I forgot to say, right now I am an elementary music teacher in Lake Washington School District in Kirkland, Washington.
Yeah, so good to have you here, Sadie, with us. I remember the time I was singing with Sadie in school. You all know that I teach I study in University of Washington, and I remember the time that I sing with Sadie. So much fun. How about UW? Okay, all right. Since we're staying in the UW, the Husky land, how about Liam? Would you like to share your stories as an instrumentalist and music teacher with us, studying in
Well,
UW?
first of all, thanks for having me, everybody. It's awesome to be joining you. And as your teachers told you, I went to UW and I studied primarily instrumental music, although much of my fondness towards studying music at the university level is that when you're at the music building, you can walk through the halls and you can hear all sorts of instrumentalists practicing. You can hear violins, you can hear everybody from the orchestra, you can hear amazing pianists, you can hear all the jazzers, which I did a lot of jazz when I was in college. And you can also go down the hall and hear the choral music that happens. So it's really an amazing opportunity in the university, whether you're gonna major in music or minor in music or just join ensembles, it's a great place to broaden your horizons. I did a lot of vocal stuff and choral music at my time at the UW, and on top of trying to cover as many different kinds of musics that I could. So working with the jazz band, working with large wind ensembles, working with large orchestra ensembles, working with small chamber groups. I tried to do as much as I could, and the university and college level music is a great place to do that, regardless of what you want to have printed on your degree at the end of your 4 years or 5 years.
Thank you, Liam. And you all you know that I always like an advocate for all you all. Like music, no matter what you need, what you do in your life, music should be part of that. And you should keep making music. It's a gateway to express your emotion and all those things, you know. And you should be part of it no matter what. Like you can minor in music, or you can just take a choir class or orchestra class if you are in engineering or something. So that brings us to Sophia, and she is going to tell us like her experience as a music minor in WSU.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm a music minor at WSU. I'm in my second year, and I'm also studying zoology. I just got into vet school at WSU, so I'm pre-vet, and it's been a blast studying music at WSU. Obviously my kind of studies have been halted a little bit. I'm not doing music while we're doing distance learning. That's just a personal choice. But last year I was really, I had a great time taking part in the opera workshop that WSU offers. And we started doing Secret Garden. And I was cast as Lily in that before COVID hit. What else? I am from Olympia, Washington, so I did some music in town here, and I was singing in my school choir just like you were a couple years ago. And I think that doing music at WSU is a really great way to, you know, kind of keep my mental health up and meet a lot of really great people that are in similar interests as me. And that's where I met your teacher. Made some great friends. And I mean, even though my career choice is not music, I definitely am going to keep it in my life for, you know, as long as I can.
And there's so many options to do that. Like Liam told us, like you can join jazz band no matter if you are a novice player, you all start learning piano, you can do that, or you can join choir, you can learn piano. Like I remember we have group piano class in UW as well as in WSU. By the way, we are not going to have those like fight right now between Husky and Cook. Okay, all right. And you know, you all know that I have been both school. All right, so today we're just going to be in a panel setting, and I will be the one, how to say it, organizing it, navigating it. I don't know, but I'm going to ask our visitors some questions, and they are free to answer all those questions. And if you have any questions or for them, you can also put it in the chat. The questions that I'm asking are those that I collect from you last week. But if you have some questions that you really want to know, we will have some sort of Q&A section at the end. And by the way, for those of you who come in late, I am recording this sections for our students across the board in the Takula School District, for those who are interested in music or music as their professions. So let's start with our first questions. This is the most interesting one always. I always ask our musicians, you know, what makes you want to do music? How did you get into that? Like, that is so fascinating to me. So, anyone want to go first? I know we have a lot to say.
I'll jump in on that one. What makes me want to do music, it always comes down to the groups of people and the communities that music tends to create. I think I'm not alone on this panel when saying that a lot of people that I'm friends with, people that are very important in my life, I've met and I've developed relationships through. In the same way, I've developed relationships with an instrument that I play, or with a particular artist or kind of style of music or genre that I practice. Those are all things that reflect in not only what you do and where you do it, but who you get to make music with as well. So I think for me, it comes down to the people in the communities. That's why I do music and why I love to share that as a teacher. And by the way, I don't know if I said, I'm here in my classroom in Yelm, Washington. So if we take a look at our state here, we're going to be further south of Olympia, down in here, inland a little ways. And I love it down here. It's a lot of fun. So it's music is something that can take you different places too. And I think going back to the people that you get to meet, I get to meet a whole community of people through teaching music. An entire school community, an entire local community of families that students are going to be impacted by the kinds of messages that music can send. And so I love being a part of that.
I can jump in and answer what first got me into music. I always tell this story is I was a very shy fifth grader, But I decided bravely my 5th grade year I was going to participate in the talent show, and I sang a song, and the song was Love Song by Sarah Bareilles, in case you're wondering. And in that moment, I felt like I discovered another part of myself, another part of my identity. And on that stage, I felt like I took on a new personality, one that I couldn't really be in like a normal setting in a classroom. But when I was on stage and when I was singing, it was just something completely unmatched, and it felt like it awakened a new part of me. And ever since then, I haven't stopped singing. I've always been a part of choirs, and even my freshman year of college, when I wasn't majoring in music, I still decided to be a part of choir, and that's what eventually brought me into majoring music. So I'm so happy. I've always had singing, and even beyond in the choir classroom and singing myself, especially in high school, having music there and being able to tune out from the noise of everyone around me, even just like in the short passing periods, being able to put in headphones and just listen to music was the ultimate escape, and it still always is that.
All right, I can jump in. Personally, for me, I started singing when I was really young, just around the house and stuff. And I joined a youth choir that was in my region. And the director of that choir is still today my very good friend and voice teacher here in town. And I'd say he's like by far the person who's influenced my music career the most. I take lessons and I do kind of small gigs around town and sometimes make some money just for fun and to interact with the community and I think why I make music is to to tell a story and to make people feel something. And so whenever I get the chance to perform in an intimate setting like that, I jump on that opportunity. um, I don't know. I would mostly attribute my passion to that, but other than that, I like to compete. That drives me a lot to know that I have somewhere to go and keep growing and keep learning. And so that's probably why I've studied music at university, even though it's not really for a goal. It's just that I want to keep tuning those skills that I have. And yeah.
So you three all mention like a word that I keep hearing and hearing is the community that you are in. You want to create community through music. And I have told you all the time. If you have been very focused, I always say that. Like I come here to build community. Why is that something that we really like to do? I think that leads us to a second question. I feel like what did you enjoy the most, or what do you enjoy the most being a music majors or being a music minor in school? Like some of you have already mentioned that like you can hear like some talent musicians like playing in the practice room, always have some sort of symphonies going on the third floor. I remember when I was in UW, those practice room, don't get in the practice room though, that they are very gross sometimes, but I remember those time, good old days. And like enjoy the company with all those like people who want to make music and stay together. So let me recap that questions one more time. What did you enjoy the most? Being a music student.
I would say for myself, being part of the productions that we did, Opera Workshop, and I really like being on the stage and acting and incorporating music into a story. And like I was talking about, I like telling stories and making people feel stuff through music. So I think operas and musicals are a really great way of doing that and getting your message across. So I mean, for me, I'd say the storytelling.
By the way, Sophia was talking about what is that called? Secret Garden. I was supposed to conduct that, and then it completely shut down. So I'm a little bit sad, but yes, like making music with those people who are very dedicated on the same stage. You that makes like that is like very enjoyable. How about another two of my colleagues?
Well, speaking of dedication, one of the biggest takeaways for me, being able to study music at the university, is that you are surrounded by faculty and peers that dedicate themselves to their crafts and to the exploration of music and sounds. Um, that really cannot be stated strongly enough, in my opinion. To see a professor that you have who has spent their entire lives learning about something, whether it be music history or whether it be jazz piano, and to be able to just, glean even a small percentage of the amazing, lifetime of work that they've dedicated themselves to really means everything. So I think that's one of the most exciting things about doing music in a university setting is, unlike anywhere else, your day-to-day life is filled with people who truly eat, speak, and breathe music every day. Uh, and I'm starting to have withdrawals from that, frankly, not being at the university every day and not getting to, uh, swim and all of that. Just it's really pretty a cool thing.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with what's been said so far. Is just the people who are around you in the music school. It's amazing. I mean, going from sitting in giant chemistry or calculus lectures and everyone is just there concerned about, what grade and how their grade is going to compare on the curve in the test, and sitting in this giant lecture of 600 people, that versus sitting in the music building where classes are so much smaller, and the people there, they get it like you do. It's like when you share like a same favorite artist or favorite band with someone else. It's like, oh, you get it about that person or that group of people. It's everyone in that building just gets it about music, because I mean, not everyone's a music person, and that is something we'll get into this. And in the professional world, is sometimes you have to advocate yourself as a music person a lot of the times, but being in that setting of the music building, you're just surrounded by it all the time and you never have to question it. It's like everyone knows why they're there and you know why you're there, and it's just very fulfilling. It's awesome, inspiring. Yeah.
Inspiring. Like the people that you work with, like those professors, like Liam said, like they have been working so hard to get to where they are. Like Sadie have been saying, like, oh, those people, they really like. If you say a music inside joke, they will instantly know what you're talking about. Those kind of things that is so important, and also it's a gateway to get out of those like stressful class, calculus, English. Why do I? Well, and then you get into music class. You just enjoy and you just make music and enjoy the people, and you don't have to worry about the grade. You just be present and learn a thing. As I said, I'm just telling you all. Turn in your late assignment grading those. I don't want to give you a bad grade. I have told you all the time. All right. Since we are talking about school and talk about schedule, this and you have been saying a lot of good things about music. Like, oh my gosh, good people, good community. You enjoyed it, every single moment of it. Is there any? It should be some. There should be something that you hate. Like, is there anything that you have to do besides just making music in your music curriculum? Like, what is your schedule like as a music student in college? What classes you have to take besides just singing or, I don't know, singing or being in an ensemble? What other classes you have to take?
So I think for most musical pathways in the university, if you're going to go into the College of Arts and get a degree in music, it's usually either going to be a performance-oriented degree or an applied music oriented degree. And so examples of both is for performance-oriented degrees. Those require you to study very intensely with your faculty members of a particular instrument or voice. And so you spend a lot of time in studio classes where you are working towards quarterly recitals or semesterly recitals. And that might be every Friday. For example, in my experience, I studied classical bass, and every Friday was bass studio day. And so for an hour every week, all of the basses that were in that major of classical bass performance would work on bass quintets together, or they would work on different repertoire for a recital that happened every single quarter. And so in those performance-oriented degrees, you are really giving a lot of your time to the instrument that you play and working up repertoire, both as a soloist, and then you also have a required ensemble requirement. So, you know, if you play violin and you're studying violin performance, you also, you know, have to be in the symphony or fulfill that ensemble requirement in some kind of orchestra that corresponds to your primary instrument. Now, when you have other kinds of degrees, applied music degrees, you will see that the course load can typically be a lot more diverse in terms of the kind of coursework or type of class you're taking. For my experience as a music education major, I'm taking classes about pedagogy. I'm taking classes about keyboard accompaniment. I'm taking classes about the history of schools in our area and how the education mixes with the musical curriculum that we develop as music educators. And we're also filling off other requirements that have to do with non-musical classes. So we have a term called Gen Eds or General Education Credits. And that's basically what distinguishes a traditional arts college or university music program from a music conservatory. At a music conservatory, you don't have to take math classes or English classes. You just study music. Whereas at a university, you are actually taking classes that give you sort of what they consider a well-rounded arts education. So you have to take a certain amount of English credits and get classes in maths and sciences, in addition to the requirements of your particular major, be it music education. Jazz studies was another applied music degree that I was pursuing in my earlier college years. And in that degree, I have to be proficient to a certain degree on keyboards, even though I was playing bass. And so you'll find that there are different little requirements, and those requirements start to add up in terms of your day-to-day college-going experience. So you start the morning going to music theory classes, going to piano technique classes, going to your studio classes, like I said, and then also ensembles, as well as any other music history requirements you must fulfill. There really is a huge gambit of different kinds of coursework when you're a music major.
So, dang it, I still need to take like Gen Ed, general education, which means I still have to take like mathematics. I still need to take English. I still need to take history. You can sign up for those classes. Math sucks. I feel you, Aaron. But you know what? You still need to do it, you know? Like, you gotta do it. Yep, I know, you all. So Liam was talking about some theory and music history, which I think, well, to me, I think they are fascinating and amazing. And I know that some of my colleagues in music major, some of my music major, they don't really like those classes. Sadie, can you tell us something about like what music theory is, what music history is, and why do we really need to study those? Like, why?
Music theory and music history, I think everyone who is a music major takes those core classes, no matter what it is. If you're applied or if you're a performance person, everyone has to do theory and history. Theory is, it's like the building blocks of music. It's like breaking it down to the cellular microscopic levels, and it's like what makes up music? What are the individual things? What makes music music? Why does it function the way it does? And there is a formula to everything, except, when we start getting into late atonal stuff, then all of that goes out the window. And
Okay. Well, let me jump in for a little bit. They know some in atonal stuff because I show them some crazy atonal music, and they love it. Some of them they was like, "Oh, I love this." And I was like, "Well, then you don't need to study theory." No, just kidding. You still need to study theory. A lot of theory behind those things. But keep going. Sorry.
yeah, that's music theory. And music history is something that I really didn't study or get into at all before coming to college. And a lot of people don't have the same experience as me, but I loved music history. I loved my experience in all of those. I think it was a whole year of music history classes. And to me, it was just a different way of talking about music. Music theory is like the analytical scientific way to look at music, almost mathematical, but music history is, I don't know, it's just talking about why does it make you feel that way, or how does this specific gesture in music emote this certain feeling. And I had never really had those things in my toolbox before to talk about music, and I loved how professors just were so passionate in music history and had this amazing way of talking about music in a completely different way, and I loved those classes.
Okay, so I have never thought that. Well, I thought that, but if I'm a student, I have never thought that like music can be thinking like in a scientific way and so sociological way. Like I think music history can be those things. Like music history, they're talking about at the time that event happened, and that's how make the music is so interesting at the time, and that's where you will learn those like sociological things about music, or like putting things in social context, putting things in why that happened. And I think the music theory is more like how that happened. Like oh, in this chord, that's how the composer write that so that oh, this sounds like this. Or like oh, the what is that called, the intervals between this note and this note is like this kind of spectrum right there. That's why it makes it so like dissonance or consonance. Those are the things that you will learn from music theory. All right, so we listen to two different music majors talk about like how their schedule works. How about you, Sophia? As a music minor, what kind of classes or how different your schedule is different than music major?
So for myself, my major zoology is pretty rigorous. So I'd say I probably take 3 to 4 music classes per semester. Those usually include a voice class and an ensemble of my choice. And you can do as many ensembles as you want, but usually I have to stick to one because my other classes are so many. And then I also have to do some theory, and I don't believe history is required for me, but there's like a certain number of upper level music classes that I need to take in order to fulfill my minor requirements. So I kind of get to pick and choose what interests me and what's gonna make me feel like I spend my time the best. So I'm gonna be taking a like women in music class, which I'm excited about. Just some different things to kind of diversify my understanding of music a bit. So along with my voice lessons, I mean at WSU, I don't know if UW does the same thing, but we have our weekly convocation where we come together and we sing for other people in our voice area. So our peers that are also studying voice can hear our progress and what we've been working on in the past couple of months. And then every week we have a studio class where we sing for the other people that share our same voice teacher. And that's much more of an informal, you have the opportunity to talk to your peers and kind of give them feedback and maybe help each other out. So that's a big thing WSU stresses is learning from your peers. And um, I would say that I definitely got some good feedback from people that maybe like look at things in a different way, or if my teacher doesn't quite have the right words to explain something, they might have heard it from them, but then figured out really what they were trying to say and been able to present that kind of in a more clear way. So that was, it's nice I think it's really useful to learn from your peers. And then there's something called full convocation where every music student comes together and there's only a few people that'll perform, and that's once a week. That's just an extra thing, it's not required, but it's nice to hear the different areas make some music, and sometimes the teachers will play or sing for us too, which is really fun. Yeah, and my ensemble, like I was saying, it is usually something more acting related with music incorporated. And as far as hours go, the ensemble I was in was about, what was it, like 3 hours a week? I want to say, no, 6? I'm not sure. I think it was 3 hours twice a week. So that was a bit longer, but I would say that's the thing that I really enjoyed the most, and kind of that was a lot of my social time in school, and I really enjoyed learning that music. It's fun, and like I said, it's kind of cohesive to tell a story. And so the ensemble is definitely a good one for me. I would say, with all my sciences that I'm doing to try and get ready for vet school, it was just a really good way to, well, like Sadie was saying, all my science classes, people don't really interact with each other. We're all just really trying to pass the next test. And so the music students are much more laid back, and especially in ensembles, we don't have tests all the time. So it's a lot easier to blow off some steam and chat and make music together. And I would say that's what got me through my science classes last year.
Well, one of the things that I always like try to tell my students is when you go to college, and I want every one of you here to go to college, is that like when you go to college, you really need to find some like community that you belong to. That is very important for you to get through college life, because like sometimes you can really feel like you're very isolated when you're going to this building for like science class, and this building for another English class, and this building for like mathematics class, and then you don't really know like who are you next to one next to you. You don't really know what their name is, even you have been like with them for like a whole semester. So that is one thing, like get into a community, get into an ensemble that you can really use your voice and get partake in those like and get around with those people that can really make you get through this college life more successful and easier. So we talk about the good sides of being a music student, music major. We talk about what your schedule like. It sounds like a lot of work. We have already talked about this. Last week I was like giving them like a lecture or something like these are the classes that you will take if you're a music major, and then they were like, oh my gosh, it's so much work. But if that makes you feel, oh, this is something I really love to do, then you shouldn't think that is a lot of work. But the next questions I have, which I think you all might have too. Did you ever feel pressure to have a more conventional career or major? And if so, how did you overcome that? I think that's always our questions, being a music major, music student, or even using music as our career. Like, what if I have another chance? Will you get back and do music again? Maybe that's like a better question.
Going to university, earlier in my childhood, I had thoughts of pursuing engineering or something like that. Um, and as something to do with my life, I always had a fascination with the way things worked. but when I started participating in music in middle school and high school, every single connection I made kind of led me towards making more music. And as we went on to do, more music in university, I really start to feel not a contradiction or a tug between music and a more conventional non-musical path, but I was kind of torn between, like I said before, a performance-oriented college experience where I want to devote my life, to playing bass professionally as a jazz musician or whatever genre, whoever needs a bass player, uh, versus going in and settling down, becoming a music teacher. Because once you sign on, and you're a music teacher at a school, you can't go on tour. You can't really play too many gigs at night because you don't want to be showing up to class all tired. So there was that kind of contradiction in my experience where I started out wanting to do jazz studies, and then I also really love working with kids and teaching music. And so it's hard to let one thing go in favor of another thing. And I really am curious, have if you got in the chat and you want to say, yeah, I've seen that. Have any of you guys seen Soul, Pixar Soul? Because that movie, in a lot of ways, kind of encapsulated how I felt about, pursuing music in college, whether I'm going to remain on this track towards becoming a teacher, or whether I'm still holding out for a big break where I get that gig with that artist and I get to feel like I've made it as a bass player. And so that, for me, was a cool movie because it showed that even though maybe my spark was to get out there and become a world famous bass player, that just got me in the door of my music classroom that I'm in right now. That got me to the next thing, which is where I feel like I'm really meant to do, is share that spark of music with other people, with students and with colleagues. And so for me, that's kind of been a contradiction is, well, do I need to spend the rest of my life doing music? Is it going to get stale after a while? Or do I need to spend the rest of my life sharing music? Maybe that's not the end game. Maybe that's just the means through which I get to connect with others and kind of fulfill what I like to do with my day.
Yes, I felt a lot of pressure to do something that was not music whatsoever. Um, Not only internally, but it would be daft of me to ignore the parent pressure that was there to not do something like music because who can make a career out of music? So I did go to college originally as an engineering major, and that's what I spent my first year as. But like I hinted at, the music building called me back. The passionate and inspiring people that were there, that was like I knew that that was the building I wanted to be in. And just sitting in those classes, those engineering classes, and just thinking to myself, is this really what I want to continue doing? Is this how I want to spend not only these next 4 years in college, but my life after that? Is that really what is going to make me happy to do? And the answer was no. And it was definitely a scary decision to make that switch in the middle of college. And I also have to recognize like the immense amount of privilege I had to be able to make that switch and have my parents support me in that decision. And not everyone will be in that position as well. But I am extremely lucky and so glad that it just took me that short amount of time to really think to myself and think of who I was as a person and think about what I wanted my future to look like and know that I wanted to be in that music building.
Okay, so for myself, that pressure is very real, and I did not overcome that pressure. I am doing a STEM major. um, Honestly, most of the pressure comes from myself to kind of choose more of a practical career, and also, animals are another passion of mine. I love medicine, I love sciences, but uh, would I maybe be happier if I were a musician? Yes. The answer is yes. But I still totally plan on incorporating music in my way. In town here, I have a pretty solid community where I do it in between my learning. I'll come home for a week and do some performances, and I usually do some things over the summer and my competitions and things. So, I mean, my goal is to keep incorporating music into my life and settle down in a place that has a really vibrant music community. That's important to me. Because I think veterinary medicine can happen anywhere, but music, it kind of takes a special place and kind of special kinds of people to really have that drive to spread it to the community, and have the means to spread it to the community. So, yeah, the pressure is real, and it's okay if you don't want to do music for a career, but if you're passionate about it, I mean, keeping it in your life, I'm finding a way to do it, and I believe you can too.
Well, it seems like this so like we are in, I would say we all in our early career in music, and I feel like the more we do it, the more hardship that we will encounter, and but what really keep us doing music is the community aspect of that, the things that we really want to share music with you all, and trying to spark your interest. I think that is like go back to Liam's what he talked about, the new movie just come out, Soul. Like, how can we spark some interest in a new soul, in a mature soul, to get into music or doing something like art related? If you think that you are passionate in those, you should keep your dream and you should keep your hope. Be faithful. I love music, but I don't want to go to school for that. You know what? There are a lot of people who do that. Songwriters do that. It's very hard path to do, but you can try. And you never know if you will be success if you don't try it. And I want you to keep trying until one day I can tell the people this was my student in the past. And he is a famous songwriter right now. All right, so I want to open. So we have like 10 minutes left. I want to open this to the floor. Do you have any questions in mind regarding colleges, regarding music major or music or anything you want to ask? Type in the chat right now, or you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, I will ask my last questions, but I don't want to do that yet.
Actually, before the questions, there was just another thing that also inspired me to be a music major, and that was students, and that was working with younger people. And that was something that when I was in music, or when I was in middle school or high school, I didn't really work with kids before. But as soon as I got into the setting where I could work with younger people and see how they can grow in their musicianship, that was obviously, as a music educator, such a big pull for me.
And I have already tell them all the time how much I love working with them. Like I feel like that is like one of the things. Like being a music teacher, you not only need to like love your student, but also you love your music, and then you combine those things together and then share the things that you love to them and try to like teach them. Liam, do you have something to say? Sorry, I should let you jump in.
I do not have anything to say at the moment. I'm reading this question. What do we have here?
I'm going to answer that question. I totally think you can have a viable music career if you don't go to college for it. Going to college is great. It'll definitely help hone your skills and get you those classical and that theory skills. But if you want to be a working musician, there's a need for it. There's people that are passionate about it. Find your community, find people who find what you do valuable, and go off, make money.
One thing about colleges, you can't really like change that, like you can't really get any like that experience out of there, is that like you can like really like have some good connections. Like your colleague can be your connections, like your classmate can be your connections in the future. Like Sadie was my classmate, Liam, they are my classmate, and then they will come and have a conversation with us, or we will do collaboration outside of what our daily life is as a music teacher. So those connections are very important, and sometimes you can't really get those if you're not in a college setting, because like those people are the one that you really want to connect with. Or like professors, those are the one that have been in the field for long, and they would they would write you recommendation letters, tell the people, oh, this is like I would, like, if you are going to get into music, I would say, like, maybe Charlie want to get into music, I would be like, you know what, Charlie is a good like piano student, she was like doing this with me, and she have been doing this for long, and I really recommend you to take her as your student. Like those things is very important in music, and that is something that, like, without a music degree in college, that you cannot beat that, I feel like. Any other questions you have in the house?
Yeah, and while we're fielding more questions to add on to that, I play bass, and people hire me to play bass on their records or for live performances. And so even during quarantine, I've been doing gigs with people that are making it through music, and they didn't go to college for music. So I played this hip hop show on Saturday. That was a live stream show, and paid gig. And then there's people out there that are doing it. My friend, he just got a really amazing gig. One day in the studio playing drums, and I don't want to talk numbers per se, but this guy was able to pay him $8,000 for that one day in studio, because he has hit songs on Spotify. He didn't go to school for music, but sometimes all it takes is one song. You can blow up. You can get yourself out there, and the deck might be stacked against you in terms of if you're trying to make it with a pop, hit song, but sometimes it can happen.
So we have a questions in the house. Did you find making connections with people and programs like internship or boot camps difficult? Anyone can jump into that. I don't have anything to say about that because I have never done any internship or boot camps. Anyone have that experience here?
Not specifically internships or boot camps, but to just getting into different areas of music. I personally understand how like intimidating that can be, and I'm just definitely more of an introverted, shy kind of person who doesn't necessarily like to reach outside of my bubble all the time. But just in my experience, people in the music world are so opening and so welcoming to you being a part of what they do. What's coming to my mind is one of our ethnomusicology professors was a part of, oh my gosh, now I can't remember the genre of music. But it was kind of similar to mariachi kind of style music, and they're
old.
Yes, Son Jarocho. And he had an amateur group of musicians he would make music with outside of school, and is always very opening and very welcome to people joining what they do. And yeah, it's intimidating, but put yourself out there, and I think musicians are always welcoming.
Okay, so we are approaching to the last 5 minutes of this conversation, and I really want to say thank you for you three, Sophia, Sadie, and Liam joining us. And I think we should give a round of applause. So if you can like find your reaction button and then click that clapping button, that would be awesome. I see Sierra doing it. Thank you. Okay, Aaron, thank you. You're going a little bit too far, but I like it. All right. So the last questions I have, everyone. is that do you have any advice or any last word that you want to give us for those who want to pursue music in college? Any advice? Very important one.
I'd say follow your passion and be respectful to the people who are teaching you because they definitely know more than you do. And your relationships with the people that you meet in college are potentially going to get you jobs in the future. So work hard, care about what you're doing, and always be respectful.
I would say doing something like music, even though it's something that people, whoever does it, it's their passion, it's what they love to do, and that's why they do it. But at the same time, something like that can also be a double-edged sword in a way, because of that saying of if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's not really true. I mean, at the end of the day, work is work, and we are well-rounded people who have different facets to our life. So I would say if you are studying music and you feel discouraged and you feel like maybe this isn't it for me, I didn't expect to have to put in all of this and it just feels like not a part of me, then that it's okay to feel that, because even if it's I'm doing this because I love it so much, but right now I don't love it, just remember your why and push through that and know that it's okay. We're multifaceted people and work is not everything at the end of the day.
I think, it's really important to know that every college is different, every music program is different, and that, if you want to pursue music at a higher level and you want to do it through a college or university, that as much as you try to know which one's the right one for you, it a lot of times comes down to trying it and doing a year. And I think uh, there's no harm in having to transfer or feeling like you want to change up what you do after you start doing something. Uh, you can make the most of your youth through music. You can make the most of it. So yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, but it's hard to think of advice, to be honest with you.
I really want to say like thank you one more time for those like for you three to come in, give us those valuable suggestions and your experience, share those experiences and stories with us. Um, like sometimes like they're getting a little bit bored with Mr. Joseph. Mr. Joseph always advocating like, oh, world music is so important. Like you all need to know this, or like playing music for life is like so beneficial. But it's so good to have someone other than Mr. Joseph coming in and tell you the experience and the stories. So you all giving you agenda tomorrow. Tomorrow we have three other musicians, music professions coming in. One is residing in Chicago, pianist. Another reside in Virginia, doing psychology on the side with music, pianist. And then another music teacher, choral teacher, who reside in Seattle will join us tomorrow. So if you want to know, now you know, oh, going to college, have those story experience. What if I end up getting into musical field? What is the challenges that I will get? What are the stories that those musicians can give us? What experience that they can give us? Stay tuned and come back at the same time tomorrow. Bye you all. I would like to talk to those three who come in today. Thank you so much. And I would like to talk to you three for a second. But you all are free to go. And I'm saving this recording so that you all can have it later. So should I just stop record, right? Stop recording.